Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today for our special webinar titled Leader as Coach, Leading in Complexity. So my name is Frances Sadi, and I serve as the Associate Director of Non-Degree Programs at Brown University's School of Professional Studies. So at Brown SPS, our mission is to equip leaders and professionals like all of you with the tools to navigate in complexity, lead with intention, and grow both yourselves and your teams in meaningful, human-centered ways. Through programs like Leader as Coach, we aim to create space for leadership development that is not only practical, but also deeply transformational. So before we dive in, just a few quick housekeeping items. So first, we welcome your engagement. So throughout the talk, please do use the Q&A feature found at the bottom of your Zoom screen to submit your questions. And we will make sure to save time at the end for discussion and dialogue. And then second, we are recording today's talk. So we will send out an email with a link to that recording, as well as some information on our coaching programs later this week. So don't worry about trying to keep up with all of the details presented today. So here at Brown, we are proud to partner with ACT Leadership, a globally respected leadership development firm known for helping organizations navigate complexity through coaching, systems thinking, and adult development. So together, we have co-developed the Leader as Coach program to help leaders bring coaching skills into real-world leadership. So this partnership is unique in that it brings together ACT's human-centered field testing coaching frameworks together with Brown's academic depth and focus on applied transformational learning. So today's session is going to build directly on that shared vision. Over the past year in our classrooms and in conversations with corporate clients, we have heard the same refrain. Leaders are navigating uncertainty and facing pressure to act and perform with fewer clear answers and more competing demands. So understandably, the instinct to often fix, decide, and take control is there, but is that the best? So what if leadership today calls for something different? So coaching-based leadership offers a powerful alternative. It's about shifting from control to curiosity, from doing it yourself to creating space for others to grow. And that is what we're going to explore more today. So to lead us in that conversation, I am excited to introduce Michael Hutchins. Mike, along with his wife, Erin, are co-founders of ACT Leadership and are adjunct faculty here at Brown School of Professional Studies. Mike has spent more than 2 decades helping leaders move beyond command and control models and build true developmental organizations. He's trained and coached leaders across sectors, from federal agencies to Fortune 500 companies, and has co-designed one of the country's most respected coaching certification programs. Mike's approach blends system thinking, coaching, psychology, and deep practical insight. I know you're going to learn a lot from today's session, so I am honored to hand things over to you. Here you go, Mike. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Fran, for a comprehensive introduction. And welcome, and thank you for this opportunity to meet with you all today and share with you a little bit, as Fran just said, around demonstrating how coaching works in a developmental context, in a world that is becoming more and more complex, uncertain, and in some ways chaotic. So that's what I'm hoping to demonstrate as we go through in this conversation. I'm going to begin with a short video that walks through the essence of what we're going to be talking about in this session. So for the next 4 minutes, just sit back. You may want to take notes, but really just walking through the core of leadership coaching. What is leadership coaching?
When you ask leaders about their biggest challenge, many give the same answer: navigating complexity and uncertainty. It's unrealistic to expect them to have all the answers. The conventional command and control model of leadership, still prevalent, is no longer effective. With constantly shifting expectations and widespread employee disengagement, leaders are searching for better ways to guide their teams. In the next 4 minutes, we'll reveal how leadership coaching is the key to reinventing organizations for our complex, ever-changing world. Stick around as we explore the journey from a staggering 70% of employees feeling disengaged to a workforce that's all in. First, let's consider the evolution of a leader. How do they end up in this predicament? As employees, success usually means working solo and having the right answers. It's crunching numbers and solving problems, not so much life and social skills. This fosters a need for perfection and control. But as they ascend the ranks, these individuals are catapulted into leadership positions. A new skill set is suddenly required. Here's the disconnect. The technical skills that got them to their current position may not be what takes them to the next level. Sure, some leadership development programs may help, but they tend to focus on the outside in, theories, concepts, knowledge, essentially what to think. Change needs to come from the inside out. Leaders need to know how to think and how to feel. Leadership coaching starts on the inside with self-awareness. Each of us carries an internal map shaped by years of socialization, our mental guide for navigating life's complexities. We're usually unaware of its existence, much like a fish oblivious to the water it swims in. It's difficult to gain perspective when immersed in our own thoughts. But through perceptive questioning, the leadership coach exposes the patterns and assumptions by which the leader operates. As they examine these uncovered thought patterns with curiosity, the coach may ask, what hidden narratives are driving you? How do they affect your leadership? Does your internal map guide you where you want to go? Now, armed with awareness, the leader has the power to reroute, to rewrite the story. Choice means saying yes to beliefs that serve and empower you, and a respectful no to the beliefs that don't. So, awareness leads to choice, which in turn leads to transformation. No longer beholden to reactionary impulses or limiting beliefs, the leader gains agency over their thought patterns. They start creatively exploring perspectives. Their cognition, emotions, and purpose all in tune. Transformation starts within, then naturally radiates to teams and entire organizations. An inclusive culture emanates from the leader who allows others to shine. Instead of clinging to outdated notions of top-down control, leadership becomes about unlocking the potential of every team member. The leader acts as an architect, creating systems to support and motivate others, and gives every team member a sense of purpose. ACT stands for Awareness, Choice, and Transformation. That's how we approach everything we do. Slowly, we start to see changes. No longer concerned with having all the answers, leaders cultivate a culture of listening and honest inquiry, embracing feedback as an opportunity for growth. Saying no to micromanagement, they empower self-directed teams who feel safe and poised to make swift, informed decisions. And not bogged down by details, leaders have space and time to respond rather than react, and they maintain a broad perspective on success. In a world at the mercy of relentless change, leadership coaching isn't just a guiding framework, but a mindset, a philosophy, and a way of life. Embracing the principles of inside-out coaching brings us back to humanity and authenticity in our leadership, one conversation at a time.
Okay, so hopefully that gives you an overview of where we're going in this session. I'm really looking at the tension that we see between complexity and control. So let's go back to this now. One second. And let's just do a quick definition of the terms that we're working with here. So complexity, really multiple moving parts, shifting variables, where there's no longer a single right answer. This is something that our coaching clients are telling us all the time. It's like, I wish I could just make a decision, but it's just not clear. There's a lot of different perspectives. There's unpredictable outcomes. And a lot of these systems are interconnected. And what we're seeing is their response to that is still that sort of control way of looking at leadership, where there's that instinct towards certainty and stability. So it's that kind of top-down approach where when they feel under pressure, they tend to want to give direction much more than to development. So they jump in and they fix. And that obviously creates this disconnect with the rest of the workforce. And that's often what leads them to come to coaching at the end of that. So a lot of the research that's been done, we work a lot with the Leadership Circle Profile, which is a 360 assessment tool, shows that 70% of leaders are operating in some form of what we call reactive or dominant reactive profile. And a large component of that is that control. So, and we also obviously see that the 70% of workers in the US are disengaged. So there is this disconnect that we're seeing and this tension between the two. And actually, we want to hear from you now around, we're going to do a quick poll around what is your go-to leadership move when you are under pressure as a leader. If you're not in a leadership position right now, maybe it's the environment, the culture that you're in. Maybe it's your boss, your previous boss. But we've got 5 statements here or opinions for you to work through, to think about. So when under pressure, what is your go-to leadership move as a leader? And the first one is tell them what to do or solve it yourself, right? So is it that instinct or impulse to drive, double down, I'll take care of this, everybody else out the way, I'll deal with it? Or is it B, where you tell them what you would do? So this is a little bit more subtle. So maybe you start out with sharing your opinion and have quite a strong preference for that, but then say, well, I'm still open to other ideas, and but I'm sort of leaning towards this, right? So you kind of leaning them in a certain direction. The next one is you're asking, right? So what do you think we should do? But you're sort of loading the question with a solution. And this is, again, something we hear a lot of time in people in coaching. So you are steering it towards where you want it to go. So it's sort of like advice or opinions through the back door. And then the final one is about asking, really asking, and then getting out of the way. So it's getting curious and really allowing space for the light bulb to go off with the other employee or the team, so that they can really start thinking it through for themselves cognitively, and coming up with a solution for themselves and take ownership. And then E is none of the above. So it could be that you avoid it and hope it goes away, or anything else. So just take a moment and think about which of those feels for you your default response under pressure. And we will wait a moment and get the results.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So we already have quite a few of you have submitted an answer.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And as we wait for those responses to come in, we will share the results. But feel free to, if you feel comfortable, drop some information in the chat, say more. Tell us, what does your leadership style look like? How does it align in that instinctual gut reaction you have with your leadership style when you're under pressure? Does that align to where you want to be as a leader? And if so, maybe take a moment and do some self-reflection on areas where you might be able to make some subtle shifts.
Yeah. And just remember that any of these A, B, C, D, or E are all valid leadership responses. It really depends on the context. The context that we're talking about here is complexity, uncertainty. So that's really what we're looking at here. But for number A, if your customer is saying, give me an answer right now, or I'm going somewhere else, and you have the answer, obviously you're going to give the answer, right? Tell them what to do.
Exactly. I'm going to close the poll here soon. I'll give about 5 seconds for folks to fill it out. And 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. and then I'm going to share the results. So it's interesting. It's a pretty even split between A, B, and D, but by far at 48% is option C, which was ask but steer. Ask for their take and then guide the decision.
Yeah, and it's aligned very much with when students who are leaders come into either our leader as coach or our full certification program. On day one, we ask them, we go through the mindsets of coaching around the client has the answer. Your job is to guide them, not to direct them. And so they kind of get that cognitively. But when they ask their open-ended, what we call powerful questions, what we see is that there's somewhat of a solution baked into the question. So there is some steering or leading that's going on often. Sometimes they're not aware that they're doing that. But it obviously often narrows down for the client the responses there. So as we go through this presentation, what we'll see is how you as a coach can keep that open, as a leader as coach can keep that open for your employees to be able to figure stuff out for themselves. Okay, so control is where we're looking right now, and it once worked when the world was stable. So I think it's important to note that a lot of our hardwiring is for control. It's part of our nervous system to want to return to safety. Part of our survival when we see threats. We want to, or when there's uncertainty, we want to get back to something that is more predictable. And so that worked for us a long time ago when there were predators. And those reactions happen in milliseconds, right? Much before any cognitive or prefrontal cortex can reflect on any of these things. And that still lives with us today in leadership, right? We still have those instinctive fight, flight, or freeze reactions. So not to make control wrong, it's like we're working really with or against the body sometimes when we're trying to work away from that. That then worked, obviously, as I'm taking a sweeping fly through history here, but we think about civilizations, they were very much built around the pyramid or around a triangle where you had a leader at the top. In this example, there weren't thousands of opinions or feedback about irrigation systems in the Roman Empire, for example. It was people at the bottom of the would go and do the work, right? They would be the workers, and this structure worked. It was efficient, and it was replicated, and it worked because the world then was a lot more stable, predictable, linear, local, actually, than what we have today. Moving forward to the 20th century, we sort of went from ruling to managing. And I think this is a point in history where, we took control of natural resources, and people sort of became entwined with production. It's what my father has written many, many books on around the Industrial Revolution and Taylorism, and just how people became controlled, right? It was like your value almost was like your output, time and motion studies. It was like piecemeal work. It was like you get paid based on how much production or productivity that you got out of the system. So that was the world in the 20th century. And again, it was somewhat predictable. It was somewhat stable relative to today, at least. And so mass production worked, efficiency worked, and the system worked. It didn't work for the people that were on the receiving end of it, for sure. I mean, in terms of development, it wasn't even a thing really at that point. It was the idea was you come into work, you clock in, you clock out, and that was really it. There wasn't a need for innovation at that time. So then the world changed. And for me, my career really started in the late 90s as a CPA, trainee CPA, and then as a consultant. And so I did see the old world in the UK where tea was still served on a trolley, and people smoked in the office. Can you remember that? Like, it was incredibly different to today. But things were still predictable. And as I became a consultant, one of my first engagements was, I don't know if you remember Y2K, right? This was how we dealt with complexity back then. We thought that, the world was going to fall apart because Excel spreadsheets couldn't deal with two zeros. And so I remember 1999 at midnight, and I had to be ready to be in the office for year 2000 as a consultant, ready for these client engagements that I've been trained for. And as you may remember, nothing really happened. But that was the beginning of things becoming complex. As a consultant, I was one of the manufacturers of complexity with enterprise systems that we were putting in. Remember the expression like change is the norm, that ran for about 10 or 15 years. Then we had .com, we had internet, we had globalization, and then forward wind to the pandemic. And now really AI is the big one that certainly my clients are most excited and concerned about in terms of complexity and uncertainty as we move forward. So that's a snapshot of really how things had changed really in the last 25 years. So why is that relevant? Well, leadership has moved on for sure. And certainly, when I started, the word leadership wasn't really used. It was saved for military, but there weren't really leader development programs back then. It was management. If you had a problem, go and speak to management. And it was all about managing things. And we've definitely moved out of that world now. But the insights that I get from coaching around really under the, seeing when I do a 360 with a leader, and getting their feedback and then getting the employee feedback and juxtaposing those and just seeing that there really is still a disconnect. So just on this slide here, I took these are anonymized examples, but I have hundreds of these over the last 10 years. And so do our faculty and other coaches around this idea of still having this impulse to control. So my strategic perspective is more important. And then the employees saying, well, I deal with this customer every day, but the decisions are made without my input. My boss doesn't have the context. So why can't they just let me deal with this? Anything less than perfect reflects poorly on me. My boss calls it high standards, but it's just control. My success depends on how others perceive me. Collaboration only happens if it makes my boss look good. So this is in what we see still prevalent, this idea that the leader is expected to make the decisions, solve everything, and the employees are there to raise those as issues. I always think when we do our team coaching, we go into an organization, one of the first things that I ask for the leadership team when we're coaching them is, can I see your agenda for your monthly meeting? And what I'm looking for there is how many of those issues are tactical issues related to things that could be solved by the employee. And if there's, and sometimes it's just this really long list of issues. Oh, this customer's not done this. We need to make a decision on. And the question is, does the leadership team really need to be answering those or solving those problems? Isn't the role of leadership to be more about creating the conditions for those folks to be able to do that for themselves? So it has an impact on customers. It really does have an impact on results, certainly sustainable results. If you're constantly dipping in as a leader and fixing things, how much are you denying the rest of the workforce the opportunity to learn and grow for themselves? So I say down here, in a complex system, control can become controlling, right? It becomes this vicious cycle of doubling down each time. So that's the challenge. That's the problem. And let's look at an alternative here where what would it look like if the employee, the light bulb went off in their heads and not yours as the leader? What would it look like if the leadership team saw the employees as creative, resourceful, and whole? And they, as Ronald Heifetz said, you can give the work back to the people. As Robin Rose from Brown School of SPS always says, put the problem back in the hands of the person who will be dealing with it or be solving the problem. They're the experts. They're the ones that have the relationship with the customer. They're the ones that have the context. So by floating these things up or escalating them to the leadership team, it takes maybe a month for them to get to it. By the time it's gone stale, the customers maybe already left. Leadership team doesn't have the context, so they call them into the meeting anyway. So why not look at a different approach where actually the employees are creative, resourceful, and whole, and the leader shifts their mindset to be more curious, present, and agile with them. So as you'll see in this image here, the leader is that arrow pointing to the employee. They're seeing the employee as creative, resourceful, and they're looking at, with curiosity, how are they seeing the problem right now? And how can I guide them and develop them so that they can solve this problem? So when something comes up next week, it's like they have a method to think through this critically for themselves without you actually directly fixing that issue. So it's a real shift, and it looks easy on a slide, but in reality, and it goes back to that under pressure when there's ambiguity and uncertainty, that instinct that I talked about before seems to drive where we go with this. So that's really about the leader's mindset. And this slide is saying, so what actually does the leader need to do? Well, it always starts with, and the ACT stands for Awareness, Choice, Transformation. So it's becoming aware that you do this. For Leaders Coach, we've trained, 5,000 or 6,000, certainly in the federal government, like leaders. And we asked that question on day one of module 1 around having the awareness of how much are you directive, how much are you giving space? And it's, for many people, it's the first time they've even considered that question. They've asked themselves that question, like, how am I really developing my team? And so it all begins with awareness. And once you then have that awareness and you can then start sort of self-managing how you are responding, there are skills that you need. So you're obviously learning how to listen, not just to what the employee is saying, but how they're saying it, what they're not saying, what is the tension underneath what they're saying. And then being able to create, when we say relationship and results there, it's being able to create a psychologically safe environment where they feel like they can be fully their whole selves and share what's really going on. They may say, I actually don't know how to solve this. I know that's an expectation, but isn't it better to get to the truth and co-create from that place rather than building assumptions and expectations and ultimately resentment and fear in those situations? So creating that psychological safety, being able to listen in different ways, and then being able to ask questions, more open-ended questions that evoke feelings, that evoke more information, that ultimately get to a better solution. That's really what we're trying to get to in an organizational context. And then, how do we scale this with a system and a culture? And so we're going to talk more about that in a second. But we've gone from ourselves, we've gone to maybe our team, and now we're looking at how do we actually shift the whole culture. And you'll see this inverted pyramid here at the bottom. That's really what we're trying to do, is shift the traditional way of looking at leadership on its head. And so this is what we mean by developmental organization. It actually means something very specific, where you'll see the leader is, to be honest, everywhere. But for this concept, the leader is actually at the bottom, creating the conditions for everybody else to thrive. So if you were to imagine the customers up here at the top, you want, and again, we've worked with a lot of organizations. We've got a lot of students that come through, and their organizations are doing this beautifully. They've eliminated the second line support. It's like, let me just refer this to. It's like, no, they can do it themselves. They can make those decisions for themselves with that intentional way of doing this. So there's leader as coach, which is being able to create the safety using coaching skills like listening, powerful questions, just being able to have a better quality conversation with somebody else that is much more relational and results driven, right? And then you have leader as architect. So coaching on its own is going to get you a long way, but it's also for the leader making sure there is a structure in place. So it's clear that, for example, the employees have permission to make those decisions. They understand what authority they have to make decisions. So it's not just go away and figure it out and do what you want. It's actually quite specific about authority levels, what you can and can't do, and really designing that for everybody in the organization. And then the final one is visionary, which is just alignment and making sure that everybody understands what this company stands for, what their values are, so that it helps inform them when they're making those decisions. You know, they understand the context of the organization and the why behind it. So those are the three hats, if you like, that the leader would be wearing. So they would have time to do this now because they're not tied up, entangled with fixing, solving problems, you know, specific problems that the employees could do. So they're redefining how they lead, and they're freed up. They have the space to be able to create that for others. And that ties us back to remember we started at the beginning with the poll, and we had A, B, C, D, and E. And D, which a good number of you answered, you know, ask, stay out of the way, get curious, let them talk it through. In the moment, that might be good, but it often isn't sufficient unless you have created this developmental structure with the alignment and the architect and the relationship. So there is a piece of work from an organizational design perspective that creates that environment so that you can, moment to moment, every time an issue arises, be able to have that conversation and really be able to put, as Ron Heifetz says, put the problem back in the hands of the employee. Okay, Fran, how are we doing for a time? Oh, you got the poll ready. So
Yeah,
we
we're good on time. Are you, as you introduced the poll, I have launched it, but no rush.
Great, thank you. So we want to hear from you, and if you do leader as coach, we'll be asking you this question quite a bit. You'll be reflecting on it. You'll be coached on it. But if you were to close your eyes maybe, or think for a moment, like, how developmental am I? Maybe just think about an interaction that you had recently with somebody. You know, is it that the light bulb goes off in my head? Or is it that I'm really creating space for the light bulb to go off in the other person's head? And so there's the mindset of that. And then there's the skill of doing that. You know, am I actually skilled to be able to ask questions like the powerful questions? You know, so what does a good solution look like? What do you need from me? What's your role in this? Like, just being able to ask those questions and shape the conversation so that the employee feels safe to be able to solve it for themselves. So there's the me, which is around my own development of being developmental. And then there's really the coaching skills, which I know we haven't given you a lot of them yet, but just think about how you're listening. Think about how you're asking questions. Like, are you asking them from a place of curiosity? Are you really staying present and listening and paraphrasing back what you're hearing them say so they feel included as you speak? And then the big question is, for your organization, how do you feel it supports a developmental context? Do you feel like you are growing and that your potential is being unleashed in your environment? Okay.
Yeah, since there is 3 levels to this poll, we'll give a little bit more time. About half of you have filled it out so far. So thank you.
Yeah.
And just as we did before, we'll share the results.
Great.
And
Curious to see what we get. Seems like there was a few coach-like folks in this audience, which was great to see. Right, that's ultimately what we want.
all right, we'll give about 10 more seconds.
Okay.
Okay, and 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Ending the poll. I will share the results. And Mike, are you able to see the results? You want
I
me to
am.
them, or are you? Let's see. So great. So for the on the personal level, it looks
Yeah.
like it's mostly a nice bell curve with a shift more towards the on the coaching like leadership style,
Yeah.
which is nice. If you are already a certified coach, love to just to hear from the audience on what the range of background on coaching is. If you're a certified coach, or you have taken a class, or you just have self-taught, or you're new to it, feel free to share that in the chat. On
Yeah.
the organizational, or sorry, the team level, similar results, but maybe a little bit more skewed towards the middle.
Yep.
System level, yeah, this is all over the place. This is
It is.
to be expected. We don't have as much control often on how our work cultures are set up.
Yeah. It's good to have an awareness, right? To even start asking those questions, not just to yourself, but to your leadership, and to others that you work with, your colleagues. You know, how much development really is going on here. How do I feel like I'm growing? Because, that's often how people eventually move on, if they feel like they're not receiving that. So, um, good. Fran, shall I hand it back to you?
Yeah, and then we're doing great for time. So
Okay.
this point, thanks, Mike. I'm going to share my screen now and walk through a little bit about the Leader as Coach program. But as I do that, definitely feel free to continue to use the chat feature to add comments. And you can also enter in formal questions into our Q&A, and we will have time at the end to kind of get to those. Okay. So thanks again, Mike, for enlightening us with that presentation. It was really helpful. So I'm just going to share a little bit about how kind of how we've built on those ideas that you explored today in a program that we've created called Leader as Coach, which is designed to help leaders and professionals such as yourselves apply coaching tools in real time with real impact. So I actually had the honor of going through the Leader as Coach program this past spring, and I could say firsthand it really was offered incredible value, both professionally and personally. So let me jump into that. So why invest in coaching? So we developed Leader as Coach. When I say we, both Brown in collaboration with the ACT group, in direct response to what we've been hearing in our classrooms and from our corporate partners. So as Mike talked about, leadership today is harder. There's more complexity, less clarity, and a constant pressure to perform, even when the path forward isn't really clear. So many leaders tell us that they're looking for new ways to lead that are more sustainable, more human-centered, and better suited to the realities of modern work. And coaching helps make that possible. And the evidence really behind it really suggests that it works. So becoming a coach-like leader has benefits on two levels. So first, it can benefit you as a leader individually. Coach-like leaders are better equipped to manage change, and research shows that they tend to grow in emotional intelligence effectiveness, and efficiency. And it also broadens your perspective. So instead of carrying the full weight of every decision, you're able to engage your team in thoughtful problem solving, leading to a more balanced decision making, greater innovation, and stronger outcomes. But in addition to having individual benefits, there's also proven benefits of being a coach-like leader to both your team and your organization. Coaching helps you build trust, balance relationships with results, retain talent, and improve influence within your organization, both vertically up and down. So in fact, a PwC report found that the mean return of investment on executive coaching is 7 times the initial investment, which really very few leadership programs are anywhere close to that number. So it's quite striking. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about what the actual program here at Brown looks like. So if you visit our website, you'll see that we offer the program in 2 formats. So we have an in-person offering as well as an online program. And the idea behind that is that it really allows you to choose your own adventure, selecting the option that works best for you based on your own learning style, needs, and also really just what logistically works best for you. So starting up in September is our online offering, which consists of 7 weekly sessions that are going to be held on Tuesday evenings, 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So this is more of an expanded format, and it really allows for a more gradual approach to learning the content, with consistent opportunities to kind of apply what you're learning in between the different online live synchronous sessions. And then the other option is a 3-day intensive in-person experience. That one takes place here at our Brown University campus in Providence, Rhode Island. And this delivery mode is really ideal for a more immersive experience. And let me share more details about the actual schedule. So this is the online schedule. As I mentioned, it's going to be on 2 hours for 7 weeks on a Tuesday evening. And then the in-person course is going to be October 15th through October 17th. That's a Wednesday through Friday. And it's 3 all-day sessions. So starting from 8:30 a.m. in the morning to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so as you can imagine, with the more intensive format, there's less opportunity and space for kind of pre and post work. A lot of that is really built into the curriculum, and instead the content is kind of integrated into the live sessions itself. I always like to point out, though, that whether you choose the online format or the in-person, that the actual content itself is the same. It's just the delivery style is different. So in fact, here is a little bit more about the actual content of the course. And Mike, feel free to weigh in on any of this as I go through. So the course consists of 6 modules. So the first one is Coaching Foundations. So this is where you're going to learn why coaching matters and how to create safety and trust within your team. You'll also learn the difference between coaching and mentoring. Not that one is better, but just kind of understanding how the approaches in those conversations, if you're coming at it from a coaching perspective versus a mentoring type of perspective, it's just different. And so kind of being aware of that and being able to have both in your toolkit when you're engaging in conversations is really powerful. And then in module 2, active listening and questioning, you'll be able to develop the skills to truly listen and ask questions that drive deeper understanding. This is one of my favorite modules, and it spends a lot of time on a lot of applied time and just kind of practicing. First of all, becoming aware of what type of questions we ask. Are they close-ended? Are they, do you do a lot of self-referential talk versus being able to the art of crafting a question so that it's open-ended and really allows you to draw out more from the individual that you're engaging with. Module 3, you're going to learn some concrete coaching skills and then begin to master the structure of a coach-like conversation. And then by module 4, you'll be invited to actually take a step back and think about your values and your purpose. And so in doing that, you'll be able to make sure that when you are actually engaging in that coach-like leader role, that you remain grounded in your values, personal values, but as well as the values and mission of your organization. So this is really critical because it allows you to be able to make the best choices that you can and then stay focused on what matters most. It's also critical because it allows you to authentically connect with others and to use coaching to build resilience in yourself, your team, yourself and your team, and which is really needed right now as we're seeing unprecedented rates of burnout. Mike mentioned that the statistic about 70% of employees report being disengaged from their work, and there's a lot of quiet quitting going on in the workplace. And then in module 5, reactive to creative, another one of my favorite modules. This one helps participants identify when they themselves or their colleagues are operating out of more of a survival mode, kind of a reactive mindset. So in becoming aware of when you're in that reactive mindset, that allows you to kind of move towards shifting out of that. So from shifting out of reactive to more of a creative problem-solving mindset, both for yourself and the individuals that you work with. And then, so by recognizing, as I said, by recognizing patterns of fight or flight responses, then taking a step back, participants can then make more thoughtful, innovative decisions that lead to better outcomes and increase productivity. And then lastly, Module 6 looks at sustainment, application, and integration, which allows students to practice and embed these skills through real-life applications so that they become second nature. So something that I think is really unique about the way that this program is taught here at Brown, and something that I think that we do really well, is that it's an incredibly participatory program. So throughout the course, whether it's the 7-week online course or the 3-day intensive, you're going to get lots and lots of opportunity to practice what you're learning. So you'll participate in exercises, reflections, and go through real-world practice sessions to reinforce your skills. The instructors also, both courses are always taught by 2 instructors, which I think is really nice. They do a lot of modeling of conversations, so you can learn, and usually, everyone is unique. So in having 2 certified coaches leading the sessions, you get to see different styles, and one might resonate with you more than another, but it's nice to learn through the models as well. Okay, so here are the program outcomes that you can expect to get from the program. So one is you'll gain multidimensional leadership skills tailored for today's fast-changing, complex workplace, the ability to build trust and lead more meaningful interactions, gain practical techniques to empower, motivate, and engage your team, and then strategies to navigate uncertainty with greater clarity and confidence. So here are the nuts and bolts of how to register, and we can put this into the chat as well. Courses are filled kind of on a first come, first served basis on a rolling admissions. So they are filling up. So definitely recommend signing up soon if you're interested. We are able to offer a one-time discount code of 15% for those of you who have joined us online live. And that discount code, LACinfo15, is good through Friday at midnight. And lastly, I just want to also briefly highlight 2 other professional coaching programs offered through ACT. So in case you are looking to go deeper on your development as a coach, or maybe you are a certified coach and you want to just develop those skills deeper on a deeper level, they have 2 programs for you. So the first is ACT's Leadership and Performance Coaching Certification, or LPCC. So this is a comprehensive ICF Level 1 accredited certification program designed to help you coach at a high level, whether you're working with individuals, leaders, or teams. This program is delivered in partnership with Brown and ACT, and it combines evidence-based methodology with practical tools to help you build both your coaching capability and your coaching business. So it is a great next step if you're looking for a full certification track with strong professional credibility. And then ACT also offers a team coaching program, which is ideal for coaches who want to expand their impact by working with groups, teams, or organizations. It builds on core coaching competencies and provides frameworks to navigate group dynamics, system thinking, and organizational change. So if you're interested in deepening your practice beyond one-on-one coaching, this is also a really valuable pathway. You can learn more about programs on our website. So we will drop the links for both of those programs so you can find out more if you're interested. That is it on my end. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and at this time we can open it up for Q&A.
Yeah. I have one, if I could just pull from the chat, which I think is Katie Taylor. I think you asked two or three, actually. They've got a similar vibe to them, and it ties in, and it's all around correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to paraphrase this, but what do I do when certainly I'm expected to have the answers and I'm in a real time crunch situations. What do I do there? And I think the way that we framed the program is we've tried to make it very practical, and to not say stop doing things and do this. It's a real yes and. So you see the keyboards being played of all the different leadership styles, and we're inviting you to coach as well, which could be 5 or 10% of your leadership. But it's just knowing in that moment when to create space for somebody else. And if the context, and a couple of you also asked that question, doesn't serve it, then you default to being decisive, right? If that's what's expected of you, and in that moment, that's what's needed, do it. And we're never saying that that's not a thing. But if you are continuously doing that, and if the system that you are in is always forcing you to make those decisions, then we would ask you to look back and say, okay, systemically, what is it that we can do to start empowering others to do that? So you could do the two in parallel, right? It's like, do what you need to do to keep the train running, but also start having those developmental conversations. Maybe it's a hot wash after the thing to say, hey, look, I made this decision. This is why I stepped in and did it. This is how I did it. What would it look like next time for you, maybe to be involved? What would you have done differently? And so you're coaching them and sort of after the event and developing them so that there comes a time where they can actually get involved and start doing it for themselves. So in the program, you're bringing in real live topics, things that are going on in your life. You are getting coached by the faculty. You're getting coached by each other. So you're working through your own stuff as you're developing these skills, which you are in turn practicing on other people. So it's very much around personal, professional development and your own awareness as a leader as you're developing these skills. Okay. Other questions?
Yeah. So I have seen a few questions come through just logistically on whether or not the slides will be shared. So while we won't be sending out the actual slides, we will share the recording, and you'll be able to see in that recording the slides. So you can definitely pause if you want to take notes, capture the dates and stuff. The dates and the details of the program are also posted on our website. Had a question come through about financial aid or scholarship opportunities. So while we don't offer a formal scholarship, we do have a tuition assistance application that's available kind of as we have room in the space in the course. And so that is usually in the form of like a discounted tuition up to around 20%. As available, as I said, and then also we have an opportunity to do extended payments. So if that helps as well, I can drop that into the chat. Let's see. I'm gonna look back through. A question about time commitment required for the course and the workload. So the For the online program, because it's spread out over the 7 weeks, you probably expect around 3 to 5 hours per week in kind of pre and post work that would be involved, made up of like readings, watching videos, doing some self-reflections. You'll get a handbook that you will be using throughout the course in both the in-person and online, as a way to kind of engage with the content. But for the in-person that I kind of alluded to, because it's such an intensive experience and there's usually not a lot of time in between the two sessions. And not only that, so I took the in-person session, and one of the things I experienced, and others in my cohort commented on this as well, is that you're taking in so much wonderful information and you're kind of in this immersive, creative space that it's actually kind of exhausting. So you get through the first day, and you usually don't have a lot of extra energy to think through and do work in between. That being said, there is a little bit of a homework assignment where you're invited to practice engaging in coach-like conversations with someone until you can kind of make space to set that up with a family member or a friend or a coworker, et cetera. So it's not too much. All right.
Good.
Mike, anything else that you're seeing on your end while I put the tuition assistance application?
No, we can go through and answer some of these, maybe get back to some folks. There were some questions about culture and Erting about cultural context. I would love to answer that. I think the developmental, I just not sure if this is in any way where you're going. The whole idea of the inverted pyramid actually, from me, came from my father about 30, 40 years ago, who had a deep respect and passion for Japanese production techniques and spent a lot of time in Japan. And what he always said was that there was such a high culture of quality that they put the employees really were empowered. It's almost like they didn't need coaching. It was such a strong culture. It was like they could pull the andon cord if they saw a production issue, they could stop the whole production line. It was like the most incredible example of empowerment of the workforce, where they really had the authority, and the leadership team was there to support them and making sure that they had what they needed to do the job. Right? It was like they're the ones that are really adding value here. So there are so many different shapes for different cultures that we've looked at around how this may or may not work, and whether coaching is always in every culture like the right solution. Certainly in a more North American and Western context, it is, but we're always looking elsewhere as well for for insights and wisdom from other parts of the world.
Mm-hmm. I know we're almost at the hour. I did see some questions come through about continuing education units. And so, yes, we are, because we're not an accredited body granting the official CEUs, what we are able to provide is, and also the requirements differ depending on the accrediting body that you're using it with. We're able to provide an estimated number of continuing education hours that you would be engaging with. So depending on the accrediting body, sometimes they use a 10-to-1 ratio, which is the 2.5 CEUs that Michelle, you mentioned. And sometimes it's 1-to-1, which would be 25 CEUs. So I would really definitely, if you're thinking about using that, look into the requirements for the organization first. And then if you have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out directly, and we can kind of look into that with you. And then the question about whether or not this course is a prerequisite for the ICF accreditation. No, this Leader as Coach course really is kind of designed more broadly for individuals who aren't necessarily looking to become a certified coach, and but it allows you to bring in some of those coaching skills that would be taught and bring that into your professional life. But we have had lots of individuals who take Leader as Coach, and then after going through it, they feel inspired and energized to actually then go on to become a certified coach. And we are over time. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mike, for taking the time to be with us today and for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. And look for an email from us with the follow-up link to the recording and the follow-up details on the program itself. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.